Good evening. It's the 15th of April 2019. This is Broadcasting Scotland at 7. Sadly, in Paris at this very moment, there's a terrible, terrible fire in the Notre Dame Cathedral. It's well ablaze. Firemen are actually at the moment just trying to work out how they're going to actually cope with the awful fire. One of the steeples has just fallen down and the flames are leaping really very high into the air. It's a devastating fire. It's hard to know if anything will be left of the cathedral. It's well alight, and good heavens! I mean, from the video I'm watching here, only the facade at I think it's the front of it is still standing. But of course that's only from one angle. This cathedral, it was roughly 2,400 feet high, I beg your pardon. It's a medieval Catholic cathedral, and it's one of those sort of French Gothic structures, and it had this innovative vault, rib flying buttresses, and these wonderful rose windows. It's an absolutely beautiful place. If you've never been there, it's very hard to describe the beauty of it all. It's fantastic. And of course, Victor Hugo immortalized it with his Hunchback of Notre Dame, which was then immortalized by Walt Disney, so young people will know of it. This story of is very, very sad. So it was the cathedral was begun in 1160, and it was completed in 1260. So it took a long time to build it, and of course over the years it would have been improved, and heaven knows what they would do if they ever want to try and rebuild it. So we'll come back to that story if there's anything more to report, but it's a really a terrible fire at the present moment. Back to the other stories of the day. It's the continuing saga of Brexit, really, because it's about EU citizens living and working in Scotland, and Secretary Fergus Ewing has said that more than 5% of Scotland's total workforce is made up of EU migrants, and with the rural economy particularly reliant on people from all over the EU, with its vital mix of skills and the support key industries, including the food and drink and fishing and tourism. The First Minister's made a commitment to EU citizens living here, and they will be supported to remain in Scotland during and beyond the uncertainty of the associated Brexit. Mr. Ewing reiterated this commitment when he was visiting Pittenweem Harbour, where he highlighted the importance of retaining the freedom of movement for EU workers. He said, "Our message to the people is therefore clear. You are welcome here, and you contribute to this country's diversity and prosperity, and we will do everything we can to help you stay in Scotland." It's an extraordinary number of people who do work here. Food and drink, people who come from the EEA, the European Economic Area, food, drink, manufacturing, the main people work there. Then it's warehousing, accommodation and hospitality, construction, retail, residential and social care, and professional services and health. But it's an enormous debt of gratitude we owe to all these people who've been here over the years, and obviously the Scottish Government is hoping very much that they will continue to be here. It's up to 10,000 EU citizens employed in the food and drink industry in Scotland, and so we pass on then from that to another story for tonight, which is all about the water. And in Scotland here, water is something that is controlled by the government. In other parts of the United Kingdom, this has all been farmed out to private companies. The Scottish government have accused the Tories of being hypocrites after it's been revealed that household bills for water in Scotland are around about 12% lower than in the rest of the United Kingdom. So that means the average bill is around about £46 lower than in the rest of the United Kingdom here in Scotland. So in the part where it's been privatised by the Tory government, the water industry is charging more for the water. Tom Arthur said, not only are the people in Scotland paying less, they are also benefiting from some of the highest quality water in the world. In contrast, the Tories have only been too eager to sell out the water industry south of the border to private corporations. Indeed, selling water off to private corporations in other parts of the world has been very prevalent. People like the Nestle company and Coca-Cola own a... Yeah, and you see, there's been a lot of controversy about how the Scottish have altered the tax bands, and there was a lot of controversy about that. But there's many things that we get here in Scotland that are cheaper, and actually a lot of things that are free to the end user. So it's better here in Scotland as far as being well off is concerned, as according to the Scottish government. So we've got water charges here in Scotland are around about £369. And when you look at that, that's for the supply of the drinking water, the removal of the treatment of sewage, the removal of and treatment of surface drainage from private areas such as roofs and car parks. And then there's the removal of the surface drainage in public areas such as roads. So it's a bigger thing. It's not just the water you get in your tap. It's all the other stuff that has to be done to keep the water system flowing. And so now we've got growing number of large British-based businesses are prioritising cash flow, fearing a downturn as their view of the long-term economic impact of Brexit has darkened to its most negative so far. The accountancy firm Deloitte have said. Yeah, David Sproul's on your screen behind me. He's the chief executive of Deloitte's, and he said large businesses are clearly looking to protect themselves against the risk of raising cash levels and bulletproofing their balance sheets. I'm not quite sure personally what that means, to bulletproof your balance sheet, but obviously by having cash reserves, you're therefore more fluid. And when you talk about assets, if you've got cash assets, they're the most fluid, of course, because you can use those to buy things. If you've got assets such as a building, you have to sell it before you can do it. You see liquefied. They have shops that have liquidization sales, don't they? So they can liquefy their assets. I don't think I said that completely well. Liquidation is the word I was looking for. Official data last month showed that British businesses' investments fell by nearly a quarter in every quarter of 2018, the longest decline since the 2008-2009 financial crisis. The governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, has said a chaotic Brexit remained one of the top three risks to the world economy, and of course the world economy is being slowed with the trade tensions between the United States and China and the slowing down of the Eurozone economies. Another part of the UK economy is it's leaning on people to normal folk to spend their cash in the shops. There's a report here that says moving slowly in the fog of Brexit and the slowing of the global economy, Britain's economy is increasingly reliant upon consumer spending, and as business investment and exports fade. Household spending grew by the least since 2012 last year. Hang on, that doesn't sound right, does it? Household spending grew by the least since 2012 last year. Some of the slowdown was by a byproduct of the June 2016 Brexit vote, which hammered the value of the pound and pushed up inflation above wage growth through the most of 2017. In late 2018, households and the government were the only drivers of Britain's weak economy. Investment, what investment? Businesses have held back on their plans for investment. The value of business investment lost in British economy since June 2016 referendum is roughly £10 billion, compared with its simple trend growth from late 2019 to the second quarter of 2016. Stockpiling. To the extent of stockpiling going on amongst British manufacturers looks likely to limit the extent of any potential rebound in investment, obviously if people have already bought a load of stuff. And if you look at the screen now, you'll see a great spike of in the middle of that graph there, showing United Kingdom factory stockpiling at the fastest rate at any time in history of the G7 economies. Yeah, I mean, the UK is the one with the spike there. So public confidence in economic outlook is weaker in Britain than any other UK country, according to the European Commission's data. What will the Bank of England do about this? Well, they're going to keep the interest rates very low, apparently, but it's uncertain exactly what will happen in the next few months. The economy's been stalling. The UK public really have no idea what's going to be going on in the future. If you look at the graph here, you can see that great big long spike in the middle of your screen. Well, that's the decline of the UK economy, right there. Now, here's another story again to do with we've got the record share of the UK public having absolutely no idea where the rates are going to be heading. But they might go up, they might go down, but at the moment they're holding steady. Another story to do with the economy here is from the Rightmove company, the people who help people sell houses. They're claiming that the asking prices of British homes have risen over most of the year in the 4 weeks to April 6. But this is, there's a question mark behind that, I think, because if you look at the figures presented by the Land Registry, there is a marked decline in the sales prices. So here we've got the asking prices, and they're claiming they're going up. And on the other hand, if you look at the actual figures of the actual sale prices, they go down. And of course, you have to manage to sell these houses. It's not an easy job if you're trying to sell your house. I'm sure you've found that out already. Now we turn to a really quite nice story, this one, because it's always sad, really, to see a celebrity fall out of grace and be caught up in things that are made rather public when actually they are private matters, but they're splashed across the pages of the newspapers and in our television and whatever. But it's great to see Tiger Woods having recovered from something that's been quite difficult for him. We've got him winning the green jacket. It's actually his 5th green jacket of playing golf. And so there he has been. out in Augusta National Golf Club in Augusta, Georgia. And it's the US Open and the Masters Tournament for 2019. And so he's one shy of Jack Nicklaus's record of 6. So maybe next year he gets another. Well, we'll have to wait and see, of course. He's won tournaments since 1997. The Masters tournament he won that year, and he's won 15 others since. So you've got the PGA and the US Open and the Open Champions and the Masters tournament. Well, you know that he's done that several times now. And it says here that Sam Snead said to have the opportunity to come back like this is probably one of the biggest wins I've ever had. Hang on, that doesn't read right too. This is what Woods said, I beg your pardon. To have the opportunity to come back like this is probably one of the biggest wins I've ever had, for sure, because of it, said Woods. Okay, so there's Tiger and going on, and we now come to an unpleasant story. The Grenville Tower that caught fire in London some time ago has come back into the news, not because of it, but because of a man, Paul Presetti, who's 46 and comes from South Norwood in London. Apparently, he's some sort of property millionaire. He has houses that he rents and out, I suppose. And but some time ago, he made an effigy of the tower, which included the faces of people, and he and some others set fire to this on some sort of a bonfire on Guy Fawkes night. This was filmed and then shared on the social media websites such as Facebook, etc. Now, in itself, I don't think it's a crime to make an effigy and burn it on a bonfire, but sharing images of this happening is a crime. And so today, Mr. Presetti has been charged with 2 counts of sending grossly offensive material via a public communications network. And he's due to appear in Westminster Magistrates Court on Tuesday the 30th of April. 5 other men, aged 19 to 55, were arrested and remain released under investigation. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the end of this month as to what actually happens to him and what there were after all of that. Now we move to another story over in Dundee. They've started the annual Scottish TUC conference, and coinciding with that, Unison, which is one of the TUC, one of the unions that's represented there, and the Jimmy Reid Foundation are calling for a fundamental review of local government funding. And this call was made at the STUC 122nd Annual Conference today. The report states that the expansion of local public services is possible with a fairer system of property taxes and environmental charges. Local government has borne the heaviest burden of the austerity cuts put in by the Tory government, since then, of course, the Scottish government have tried their best to mitigate a lot of the things, but it's not possible to do everything. And there was a lot of controversy about the car parking tax, which was in the news the other day. But they've launched this report, and it argues that councils have borne the heaviest burden of austerity, and the total revenue funding for councils has fallen by 8%, it says, in real terms across 8 years. There has also been a 22% reduction in cultural and leisure spending, a 34% reduction in planning. They want to try and change this and alter the way things are. But of course, other things have been tried over the years, the poll tax in the old days, the rates, etc. So we'll see how all of that goes as well. Now there's a thing here that's interesting. If you were in Brazil, for example, in Brazilian law, there is a right to enshrine in the Constitution. It's Article 227, the right for food, for children and teenagers. Now, in other countries, there is also a right to food. Colombia, for example, has a right to food. It's not limited just to children there. Cuba has a right to food, and all of the countries there. But there are others. Indonesia. It's been spoken into my ears that none of these are good comparisons, but I think it is a good comparison, because here we are in Scotland, one of the richest nations in the world, and yet we still haven't enshrined food into our constitution. We haven't got a constitution to enshrine it into. But the human right to food should be put into Scots law, it says, to protect people from rising food insecurity and the impacts of Brexit, according to a new Commission report to the Scottish Government. The report also calls on public authorities to address the inequalities in people's access to adequate food, which is, of course, vital to all of us. This is part of the Good Food consultation, the Good Food Nation consultation. And there's a quote here from a lady, Emily, who lives with her son, Cullum. Their names have been changed, in a rural area. And she says how she has to sometimes rely on food parcels from a parenting organisation. I get support from a local group where single parents can come and spend time together, as well as learning to prepare and cook food. This is a call from it's Judith Robertson's report, and I've got a quote from Judith. She's on the screen now. International law is clear that governments have obligations to take action to ensure people's right to food is realised. Now, Judith Robertson is the chair of the Human Rights Commission, the Scottish Human Rights Commission, and is calling on the government to take action to incorporate the right to food into Scotland's laws as a part of its work to make Scotland a good food nation. Now, in Ballindalloch, up in the northeast of Scotland, along from Aberlour on the A95, is a lot of fire. And also in East Ayrshire, the ground's been extraordinarily dry, but up in Ballindalloch at the Paul's Hill wind farm, a fire broke out, and then over in East Ayrshire, along the Doon Valley, there have also been fires. The fire workers have been working very hard because it's inaccessible terrain and there's very little water. The ground is dry, the bracken and the heather is very dry, but apparently they're doing well and they've managed to put most of this out now. Apparently all the fires are out. In Finland, they've had elections for their parliament. The Social Democratic Party has claimed victory, and coalition talks are set to continue. It has just one more seat than the far-right Finns party and got under 20% of the vote, making negotiations for partnership difficult. However, there's some more to that story. Finland is heading towards a broad but potentially fragile left-right coalition. The centre-left SDP looks set to keep out the Nationalist Finns Party, which it beat by just 6,800 votes. And the National Finns are a minority. About 20% of the vote, yeah. The Finns Party were the second largest party, but with a small percentage of the overall vote. They are not in a position to form the government. The Social Democratic Party will make a coalition with other parties from the left and the centre. All right. That was all coming through my ear because there was a little discrepancy in the way I read this paper here. One of the main campaign grounds was Finland's social security systems. Similar to most European countries, it is struggling with the ageing population, and the country recently trialled a form of universal basic income. They've been trying that out here in Scotland too. I beg to differ. Okay, so now we move to Australia and a story that we came across and reported on a little while ago. The most senior Catholic priest was convicted of child abuse and sentenced to 6 years in prison. When we reported it the first time, there were embargoes upon reporting this stuff because there was another court case going on, and we reported at the end of that. But now there have been charges against dozens of journalists and publishers in Australia over the reporting of Cardinal George Pell's child sex abuse conviction. And it will have a chilling effect on the future news reporting if they're found guilty of breaching a suppression order. A lawyer defending the press told the court. Prosecutors have accused journalists and news outlets of aiding and abetting contempt of court by overseas media and breaching suppression orders aimed at ensuring Pell had a fair trial. He was the most senior Catholic cleric worldwide to be convicted of child sex abuse, and he was jailed in February. And he is awaiting appeal. He's a guilty verdict would be upon the journalist. There's a lawyer here called Matthew Collins. He's a QC. He said a guilty verdict would have a chilling effect on open justice and democracy in Australia. So it's an important thing here. In December, the jury in the first trial found Pell guilty of abusing 2 choir boys. The verdict was widely reported by foreign outlets online, and some Australian medias alluded to the conviction without naming Pell directly. All right, now we've noticed and reported on children taking Fridays off school to campaign against climate change, and there's been a huge demonstration in London today with thousands of environmental activists paralysing parts of the central London. They're called Extinction is Forever. I'll probably come across this name in a minute if I just read this for you. Under sunny skies, activists sang songs and held signs which read, "There is no planet B, extinction is forever," at some of the capital's most iconic locations. Roadblocks continue during the night and the day, demonstrators said. The Extinction Rebellion is the name of the organisation, and it will involve demonstrations in 33 countries around the world in the coming days. Diana McCann, who's 66, a retired wine trader from South London, said, "I realised that signing petitions and writing letters is not going to be enough." And a few days ago, we did a long show here all about Brexit, and we had lots of things from the House of Commons, and there was a moment in that where some of the parliamentarians got a little bit excited and started using expressions like the naked truth. And what they were looking at was people in the gallery, the public gallery, taking off their clothes and standing with their bottoms towards the glass. And in fact, some of them actually superglued themselves to the glass. I don't know if any of them are still there, but this is the same group. And they also went up the Shell building by the River Thames, and 2 protesters scaled up the scaffolding there, writing "Shell Knows" in red paint on the front of the building. And they were also up in Glasgow on the Finnieston Crane. Activists said they smashed glass in a revolving door and they caused more than £6,000 worth of damage. And at least one person was arrested by the police for criminal damage. At Oxford Circus, they unveiled pink boats, a pink boat which says "Tell the Truth." And on Waterloo Bridge, the demonstrators brought trees and hanging baskets and skate ramps. So I think that's probably informed you about all of that. But that's Extinction Rebellion. Well, quite a lot of stuff there. We continually work against the clock, and we've had a good time today because we've managed to get here a little bit earlier than normal. But any support you can give us, any more people watching us, even if it's just to have a giggle when I get it wrong. But we need more subscriptions, we need more people. When we got that, we can have more people working on the programs, and we can improve the range of programs. It's kind of one of those chicken and eggs situations, a virtuous circle. And anyway, thanks for watching tonight, and hopefully we'll have some more information for you tomorrow. Maybe I'll just take a wee looky at the thing of the Notre Dame, which we started with. I don't know if it'll refresh enough for me to get another glimpse. It looked very ferocious. Now the firemen have got some hoses up, and there's water now going onto the thing, but there's still big flames. And of course, it's going twilight in Paris now, and we'll try to bring you up to date on that tomorrow evening. Anyway, thank you for watching. It's Broadcasting Scotland at 7, and it's 7:33 on the 15th of April 2019. Good night.